Well, hey there, folks. I'm meteorologist Matt Barentine. Top weather story of the day here for our Friday is going to be the heat. It's going to be excessively hot here for us across the Gulf Coast. I mean, we're talking temperatures well up into the upper 90s, even around 100 degrees. And then the heat index value is getting up to easily around 110 this afternoon. Now, I know we have these all the time. We have these heat advisories all the time. It gets certainly very hot here in August, but still don't just neglect this and neglect to take care of yourself out there today. Make sure you stay hydrated, stay cool the best you can. These kind of things can sneak up on even the best of us, even though we're used to it. So just be aware that it's going to be another hot day for us here across the Gulf Coast. That's the weather story number one. Weather story number two is what's happening out in the tropics. Now, we've been telling you for days that this would be a slow developer, and it has been, okay? We're still waiting on it to fully to develop. And right now, it's still just a tropical disturbance. It hasn't become a tropical depression just yet. Now, it will probably within the next 24 hours, I would imagine, because it's going to be moving its way off of Cuba. Once it moves its way off of Cuba, gets away from those mountains, it should start pulling itself together into a tropical depression, and then we'll see it become a tropical storm as it works its way into the eastern Gulf or up over the next few days. So, next couple of days, I should say. So, a lot happening out there. Let's check out the steering flow. There's two big areas of high pressure, one out over the Atlantic, one over the western U.S. Think of those as mountains. The storm can't go over mountains. It has to go in between, the valley in between. And we were concerned that it may end up kind of stalling out. It seems to be a less likely scenario. Now, it does look like it'll slow down a little bit, but there looks like there's a wide enough valley, so to speak, between the two mountains for this thing to work its way across Florida and then possibly off to the East Coast and maybe even over the Atlantic. If it gets out over the Atlantic, we got real issues because right there hugging the coastline of the Carolinas is the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is a river of very warm water, around 90 degrees. It gets over that, it could fire up to a massive storm. And that's what this model is showing. You can see how it deepens there from Tuesday on to Wednesday of next week with a massive looking storm there by the end of the week, by middle of the next week. Here's a different look at that. I was showing you the pressures. Now I'll show you with the European model with the rainfall. Here's what we're looking at as we go through the weekend as it's working its way up the west coast of Florida, heavy rain. Now, we're going to be on the quote-unquote good side of things where it's most likely going to be dry because of north winds, so we don't see as much rain from this. We see pretty calm conditions here, just going to have some rough surf, but beyond that, just those are the only real impacts for us. We don't get direct impacts. Now, this model is showing it working its way up the East Coast and then possibly back out over the Atlantic. That's where it would have a chance to really strengthen. Now, the European model brings it back in for a landfall back into around North Carolina as a very heavy, maybe possibly as a hurricane. And then let's check out the GFS. Slightly different. It looks a little different, but it's very similar in the sense that it shows a very similar setup. Look at that, working its way off the west coast of the U.S. on Sunday. A little closer hugging it there. So, but once again for us, no direct impacts, but heavy rain across central and south Florida. And then it drags it across, once again, the peninsula, just like the European model did, and then out over the Atlantic where it deepens and strengthens into possibly a hurricane, maybe even a very powerful hurricane if it stays out there long enough, kind of hugging the coast. So that is a very bad scenario for folks in the Carolinas. So let's hope that's not what works out, but that's what a lot of the modeling is showing at this point. All of them take it off to the peninsula of Florida, then across and over towards the Atlantic. None of them take it towards us anymore. So I think we're okay in the sense that I don't think we're going to get direct impacts. Most of the impacts will be well off to the east of us, including the heavy rainfall. The peninsula of Florida is going to get absolutely socked by rain. Same deal up the East Coast. Meanwhile, we get our typical rain over the next 7 days, which won't be anything out of bounds or unusual. So for us, things are pretty quiet, high pressure in place for today. We're probably going to stay dry through the day today. I don't see any showers or storms around, but it will be incredibly hot, upper 90s to right around 100 degrees this afternoon. Once again, do your best to stay cool out there. Here's what it looks like over the next week and a half. So over the weekend, We'll dial the temperatures back a little bit because the rain chances do dial back up into the scattered category. So that could help us out by cooling us off a little bit, but not much, obviously. And then as we look towards next week, you don't see any big rain chances because we don't see the direct impacts from that tropical system. What we're looking at is very typical August weather next week, which is hot and humid with the occasional scattered showers and storms. That's what I'm anticipating here as we move into next week, which for a lot of the kiddos in our area will be the first days of school by the time we hit the middle and end of next week. So we'll be keeping an eye on everything for you. Like I said, what's happening down there in the tropics, none of it's written in stone. The hurricane hunters will be flying around in there today, getting more information that will help with the forecasting as well. Of course, we'll keep you tuned here, keep you in tune here at Fox 10 with all the latest on that system and, of course, your forecast across the area for the next week and a half.